After what seems like a really long winter, the spring's finally here. Things are starting to warm up and the carp are starting to have a munch. Today, I'm at a typical commercial fishery. I'm at Little John Lakes near Ollerton. This place is absolutely packed full of fish, and I'm going to run you through a few things that I like to do to try to get the most out of these commercial fisheries in the springtime. One of the hardest things to decide when you approach a commercial fishery like this is where to start fishing. You've got loads of different options. Today I've got an island, I've got an area, I've got loads of open water, and I've got some reeds down the edge. It can be really confusing, but I'm going to keep it dead simple. I'm going to start the session fishing towards the island with a hybrid feeder. Fishing towards islands at the start of sessions is really good because the fish naturally push out towards those, because you're making a lot of disturbance on the bank, you're putting your box down, you're setting up your pole rigs, you're making a lot of noise, so the fish are naturally going to push away. And I want to give myself a little bit of breathing space, give my other lines a little bit of time, just fish to naturally come into them. And I actually have got a couple of pole lines set up today, one in the open water and one down the edge, but I'm not going to run you through those until I actually start fishing them. The gear I'm using today for this feeder line is really simple. I've got a 10-foot Aventus feeder rod. It's got a nice soft through action. It's going to be perfect for these carp, and it's a nice short rod, and I like that because the fish pop up right by your feet. It's easy to play fish, easy to net them, and it makes casting a lot more accurate. I've got 6-pound pulse main line. That's nice and durable. It's going to be perfect for this sort of fishing. And that's running down to a 30-gram mini hybrid feeder. I like a 30-gram weight on a venues like this when you're fishing up to islands. When you cast your feeder in, you know it's going to stay on the bottom, which is really important. So when you're tightening up to your feeder, it's not going to move, or if you're getting any liners, it's not going to move down the slope, because a lot of these islands are sloping away from you. And it's really windy today as well, so when I cast in, I know I'm going to be dead accurate with that extra bit of weight. And that's running down to a little speed bead that connects a 4-inch hook length, that's 0.17 N-gauge, to a 12 QM1. And hook baits, I'm going to have a few different options today. I've got mainline wafters, got a few pellets, even a little bit of corn, and all I'm going to put around the feeder are fishery pellets. And to boost those a little bit, I've got a bit of the mainline cell sticky syrup, just to give me a little bit of an edge when everyone's feeding fishery pellets. So let's get it in there, see if we can get one. I've had a great start against that island with a hybrid feeder. I've had 2 or 3 fish about a metre or so away from the island, but I've had to wait a little bit longer for bites. So what I've done is I've moved gradually to the right into that open water. It's a good little tip, that, because if you're struggling for bites and you're thinking the fish aren't feeding that confidently on the line that you're fishing, moving that little bit away from where you think you're going to be catching works really, really well, especially this time of year when you're not going to be going in every single cast and getting a bite every chuck. Moving into that deeper water has brought another good little run of fish, and it's made me think about my next line, my next move. As sessions progress, the fish that are out towards the island are naturally going to come into the open water, so I'm going to fish a long pole line with pellets. I'm actually going to ping pellets there. That can be a great tactic this time of year. The noise, the constant plop of the pellets bring fish in, and you can have some real good runs of fish on it. So let's have a look, see if there's a few there. Coming in on that pole line has been absolutely brilliant, but there's a few things that I've done that have given me that little bit of an edge. Timing's really important on this line. I haven't started my session on it. I've had my little start on the feeder, caught a few fish, but after an hour in, I've started pinging 2 or 3 4mm pellets before I've actually started fishing on it, because I wanted the fish to gain a bit of confidence and come into that open water where I'm pinging the pellets. Really important that you're accurate with this method. You've got to be fishing bang in the middle of where you're pinging them pellets. That's where the fish are homing in on, and you need your hook bait right in the middle. Your catapult choice is vital for pinging pellets. I like to have a solid base catapult. I think it groups the pellets nice and tight around the float. That's going to get you more fish because you're really accurate right over those pellets. You can also adjust the catapult I'm using today. So if you're feeding different size pellets, or say the wind gets up, you can get it bang on for what you want on each given day. The rig you use when you're pinging pellets is also mega important. But rather than explain it on the bank like we always do, join me back in my tackle room where I'm going to go in detail and show you exactly how to tie it. So you join me back in my tackle room where I'm going to show you exactly how to tie the rigs I'm using today at Little John. I like to keep it dead simple, and as I said in the intro, I've got 2 pole lines today. One in open water pinging pellets and one down the edge. And the rigs and all the components are the exact same on both lines. Float choice today is vital. I'm using a round bodied pattern with a nice stable wire stem. Really windy conditions today, so these 2 components are going to help me present my hook bait perfectly, keep it dead still. I've also got a nice thick hollow bristle which is going to be really easy to see, and it's not going to go under with line bites. The last thing you want to be doing is lifting into liners and losing foul hook fish. So now I'm going to start tying the rig. Starting with a line, I'm using a nice durable and reliable 017 end gauge. So I've got my line, now I'm going to get my float, past the line, through the eye, dead simple stuff. So you've got your float running on your line. Now what I'm going to take is, I've got some 0.3 silicone. This is quite important. I like to use 3 pieces of silicone on all my rigs. And on to shot choice. I'm using the new microcubes today. I like to use these a lot in my commercial fishing. So I've got some number 9 microcubes. They've got a nice thick groove down these microcubes, which makes it nice and easy when you're putting it on the line. You literally slot it up and then get your pliers. Just give it a nice little gentle push. That is literally enough. And as you see, that's one shot on the line straight away. So I'm going to put around, I've got a 0.3 float today, so I'm going to put around 8 or 9 microcubes. Then I've got my little float shotting tube. So pop it in. That is absolutely bang on for me, and that's how I want my rig to be presented when I'm fishing. Now these microcubes, the good thing about them is they don't damage your line, so I can literally just move them up the line like that, and as you can see, there's no damage at all. So on to tying my loop. There are a couple of ways that you can do it, but for me, I just like to tie a simple figure of 8 knot with my hands, and it's a nice simple knot, and it's dead quick to tie. As you can see, that's the knot tied straight away. And then I actually trim it a bit tighter with some scissors. That's a perfect loop for me. Now all this shot, I just like to simply move it back down to the knot, so my first one is right next to the loop, and then I move the second shot in inch intervals. Keeps it nice and simple. I like that nice spread bulk. It's perfect for 99% of my commercial fishing. And finally, the length of line that I want to use in my rig. I know it's going to be around 4 foot, but I like to use a little bit more line than I'm ever going to need. So I like to give myself 2 meters. All I do to measure that is I literally my arm's length. That's 1, and that's 2, and that's going to give me more than enough line for any venue that I'm going to be fishing. And now I'm going to get to the base of the rig, so I'm going to start putting it on my winder. Get my winder here, put it on the top of the peg, and simply start winding. When I get to the end of the winder, I'll grab my length of line and simply tie the same knot which I tied at the bottom of the rig, which is figure of 8 knot. So I'll get my scissors, cut the knot nice and neat, put it on the top of the winder, simply get the loop, put it on the top. Doesn't get any simpler, and that's how I like to tie my rigs for commercial fishing. Let's get back to the bank. The one thing I love about the springtime is it means you can start fishing down the edge and start catching down the edge. It's a little bit different than the summertime. You can't go piling in bait and expect to catch straight away. You've got to get your timings perfect. Usually the fish come in on this line really late on in the session, but it's definitely worth targeting because you can catch some really big fish. Another thing to bear in mind with this line is the depth of water you're fishing in. In the summertime, I'll be looking to fish in the shallowest water I can, say 18 inches, a foot of water. But in the springtime, it's a little bit different. I'd try and target some deeper water, say 3 or 4 foot. That's going to give the fish a little bit of water above the heads and feed a little bit more confidently. The baits you use down the margins in the springtime are really important. I'm not looking to fish with big piles of bait. I'm looking to set little traps and fish for one fish at a time. And today I'm feeding a small pole pot, introducing a few grains of corn with the rest micro pellets, feeding dead accurately, putting my hook bait right in the middle of it, setting the perfect trap. As I've mentioned, timing is vital on this line. I wouldn't even look to start feeding this line until 90 minutes to go. Hopefully you can see how this relates to what I've been talking to you throughout this session. It's all about targeting fish in the right place at the right time. At the start of the session I've caught a few on a feeder, the fish have gradually come in where I've caught a load on a pole, and then it's getting towards the end of the day, the fish are naturally going to come into the edges, and I'll make the most of that by catching late on in the margins.